How you doing, Bobby?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Are you doing good for this late show? Us
I'm
old,
trying. I'm
us,
trying to,
us
man.
old men are, us
I
old
had a
men are usually in
long,
bed.
I had a long day at work.
I know. I called you while I was working out, and you're like, "I'm still at work, man."
Yeah,
It's what we got to do to get good quality people on the show. It's worth it. And we're
it's
gonna be
worth
we're
it.
gonna be
It's
doing
worth it.
several late shows because it seems like there's a really good research area over there on the West Coast. But I want to thank everybody for coming in. We had a lot of great compliments, a lot of people reaching out about our last show, and I believe it's only going to get better because the quality amount of guests we have on. And tonight we are going to be having on Chris Spencer and Shane Corson from the Olympic Project, and they're going to talk a lot about what they do, and hopefully, we'll all be able to pick up on some things that actually work, some techniques that they use, and maybe the way they gather evidence and data and whatnot, and explain how it really should be done because these guys have been in the field a bit and they're deep in the mountains and they have more of a grasp on, you know, what to really do when they're researching. Here in Florida, it's all flat. You don't have to terrain much things but swamps, trees, snakes, gators, and all that stuff. But we don't really have much of a slip and fall hazard to our death like they do. So I'm gonna bring the guys on. Bob, you got anything?
No, I'm just looking forward to hearing what all they got to talk about.
Yeah, I want to say hi to everybody in the chat, Diane and Cashew and Gary and my cousin Jamie, my love of my life, Lee, David. Um, just how you guys doing, Leonard? How you doing, bud? Appreciate your help and your time. So let's bring them on. Let's get started. Let's see how we should be doing this, but we aren't because we just use our phones. And these guys, these guys are way more knowledgeable about some of the stuff that they're doing. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey there.
Doing good. Thanks for having us on
Absolutely,
here, Jimmy and Bobby. Thank you.
Hey, it's
man.
our pleasure, man. We love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, you guys have got a lot to bring to the table, and my table's pretty empty, man. Like I said, I was saying before you guys came on, we just go out with our phones and some audio recorders at nighttime. We got our thermals and night vision and whatnot. But you guys have a more detailed way to go about create keeping it, your data, and I think it's something that we could probably learn from too, because again, we're just basic.
Absolutely,
My
absolutely.
phone, my phone is my data, and you and we just got to have a better way to do it. And I think you guys set the standard for that. And I'd love to talk about some of the things that you've experienced, some of the things that you've seen, and I'm going to be asking a whole lot of questions, because I think you guys have seen a lot more than I have when it comes to this kind of thing and the terrain and how to handle certain scenarios. Because again, we're just out here in flat, swampy area, and you guys got a lot of experience trudging around the mountains. So I'll ask you guys, how did you guys get started together with the Olympic Project, and how did you come about nailing down this location?
Yeah, I'll start out and then I'll pass it off to Chris here. I got involved in the Olympic project around 2012, the tail end of 2012. I've been conducting research. I used to live in California and then eventually moved up to Oregon and was at that time doing what I called research. It wasn't until I got involved with the Olympic project that I learned that I really wasn't doing well. I was doing research, but not proper etiquette when it comes to this research. I wasn't documenting properly. And I at the time I thought I knew what I was looking for. I'm looking for impressions. I'm doing this and that. But when I got involved with the Olymp project, that Derek Randalls had really started up as the founder. And I got involved with people like David Ellis of the Olympic Project and a few others. That I learned that there was so much more that I could be doing when it comes to this, when it comes to this sort of phenomena. And I learned so much in a short span of years, and now moving forward, I'm kind of co-running the Olympic project. We have a couple of core members. I call them. Chris Spencer is one of them. Todd Hale, Rebecca Ann Slick. Um, we have a few really core members. We're kind of a broad organization, but there's just a few of us, a handful, I think, that are really, that have the time and the know-how and the will to be pursuing this subject matter. And it's been a learning curve for me. It's been a huge learning curve for me. And I'm honored to have people like Chris Spencer here that's really done so much for this research in general, but also for the Olympic project. I've learned so much from this guy here, and your Todd Hills, your Rebecca Ann Slicks, your David Ellis's, your Derek Randall's of the Olympic project. I learned that if you take the subject serious, whether it exists like I do and many of us do, or whether you're more skeptical, there's an approach to this phenomenon. Pretend you're studying bear. How are you going to document bear behavior? It's just or mountain lion behavior. There's an approach to this. That phenomenon. Those animals, let alone Sasquatch, and documentation is huge. But also thinking outside the box and conducting different types of experiments. And I will say, I'll pass this on to Chris here in a second, but I always say this because I don't have an ego. The Olympic Project as a whole does not have an ego. There are many individuals and organizations out there doing fantastic stuff that we do collaborate with, that we do talk with. But we are definitely in the category of trying to pursue data collection. And it's nice when you see other individuals doing the same thing we're doing, and maybe we can teach them something, and maybe we can learn something from them. So I give kudos to many individuals and research groups out there that are doing that. So I have to say that because we're in it for the long run. We're not in it for the short run. And we enjoy what we do, and we enjoy doing it with the people we like to do it with.
Awesome. As you should.
So I got involved with the Olympic project around 2016-17. I actually was researching an area in Southwest Washington by myself with a couple friends, and I got into doing a lot of audio work, and I followed the OP, and I ended up going on one of their expeditions, and I got to meet Shane, Derek, and David Ellis, and basically from there, me and Shane became friends. We did some camping together, and I believe the expedition I was on, it was in 2015, was the same expedition Derek got the call from the timber company that had found the nest site, and it was 2 years after that Shane invited me to come in, and that's kind of been our area of focus up to present right now, just because I don't know, I've found that where you have activity, generally, unless something drastic changes with the area, you'll continue to have activity. So we try to focus on areas we know they're at. We know absolutely that there are Sasquatch moving through that nest area, and we try to study that and figure out why and when they're there. And we've done a pretty good job of that. We've been mainly focusing on audio because it's passive and it can be out there every night when we can't. We got day jobs. We can't be there every day. But as far as like techniques and stuff, I always tell everybody, learn as much as you possibly can about the area. And that doesn't mean about the Sasquatch. Learn about all the animals, learn about all the plants, learn about the weather, learn about everything you can think of, and write it down. I have a notebook, and I don't get to it every time, but I'm pretty much, if I can, if we're out in the field, before I go to bed, I jot down everything that happened that day. Or even if I'm out and we're doing stuff, I'll jot stuff down. If I come home from a weekend, I'll compile it all. And I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just write down what happened as soon as you possibly can, because our memories change. The way I remember things, if I go back to my notes, it's like, oh no, wait, why did I remember it that way? That's changing. So as far as data collect, take notes. I mean, and you can do that with your phone. These little these things, mini computer.
Yeah.
We utilize our phones a lot. Video, photographs. Now they got the 3D scanning apps, and we use the 3D scanning apps. There's nothing wrong with just having a phone when you go out there, because you can do darn near anything and everything you need to do when you're out there. You know, there's bird identification apps on there. There's plant identification apps you can get. So there's nothing wrong with having just a phone and going out. You can do a lot with just a phone. And basically that's it for right now.
That's plenty, man. And one thing I'd like to ask about is your audio. So we are at toddler level when it comes to research with the equipment we have. I have several of the Zoom H1Ns, for recording, and several of the Olympuses. They have the thumb drive built in. You can slide in. But I've been running into issues with my Zoom. 6-7 hours is all I get recorded off that thing, and I don't understand why. When I'm throwing in brand new batteries, I'm thinking that these things should last a lot longer. How long do you guys get on your audios, and what are you using type of equipment for recording for your audio? Because I know you guys aren't going all the way up there, trudging up them hills just for 6 hours of audio.
So I started out using Tascams, and about the most I could get was 3 days and 2 nights with those. And the thing with the Zooms and the Tascams, they're power hogs. They use a lot of power. You might try something. I still have my Tascams, and I've found if you get like an 18 volt cordless drill battery, like I have Milwaukee's, you can get DeWalt's. You can get USB adapters to those, and that, for the Tascam at least, that'll run that thing 24/7 for 4 days.
Okay.
And I've used those for campouts. I'll plug them into one of those. But I've upgraded over the years. With the help of some other researchers, I started using what we call LDRs. Monongahela and Charles Kimbrough actually originally came up with these, and then I came up with a version. And basically, you take an Olympus 720 DM, and you can get a D-cell power box on Amazon with a AAA dummy battery. You hook to that power box, you put that into your Olympus, and then you can run off 2D batteries. I use Kimbrough mics. Charles Kimbrough makes them. He's part of the BFRO. They're the best. They're kind of expensive. They're $100, but as far as quality, they're probably the best mics for what we do. And with those, it depends on the time of year, but with those, generally I can get 40 nights. And I usually,
Oh, wow.
yeah, the thing about the Olympus 720 DM, it has a time record function. So I usually set it to start recording at dusk and end recording at sunrise. So that'll vary how much you get, because in the summertime, you're only going to have like 9.5, 10-hour nights. In the wintertime, you're going to have 14 to 15-hour nights. So that's going to suck more juice. In the wintertime, I usually average 30 nights. And quite frankly, you don't want more than a month worth of audio to go through in the first place.
Takes a month to listen to it.
Yeah. And so, I think I do on my YouTube, I have one of my videos, I have several different versions that I've gone through the years on what I use for audio, but that is the best way to do it right now. That's what most people are doing it with these LDRs. I call them LTRs, but if you look up Monongahela and Charles Kimbrough, they call them LDRs, long duration recording units. But a couple years ago, I decided to drop the money and buy some actual professional units, and I use their SM4 recording units by Wildlife Acoustics. And these are units that are made for biologists to do exactly what we're doing, but to record known animals. And they have several versions. They have a full-size version, which we have 3 now, and they have a mini version. I have 1 mini version. I actually use the mini version on campouts a lot, and it's really high quality audio, and it basically does everything I just described the other one does. They're very expensive though.
Yeah. Are they
But
long distance like parabolics?
No, I
Okay.
do all stereo mics, surround sound. Parabolics are fine if you're in the field and monitoring it yourself. You know, if you think you're hearing something, and like we use tree stands a lot. Like you'll sit in a tree stand. If you got a parabolic, you might want to just have it to pinpoint noises and stuff. But
Right.
for long-term recording, when you're leaving a unit out there, you don't want that. You want 360 sound. And a lot of times, all the recording units I use, I always have stereo mics, because when I place my units, I note what direction the left mic and right mic are going. So usually it's north, south, or east or west. And when you put that audio in a spectrogram, it'll show both mics, and whatever mic's hitting harder, that's going to tell you where the sound's coming. If it's hitting harder to the right mic, which is pointed north, the sound's coming more north. And if you're using multiple units, you can kind of triangulate. You can kind of figure out where the sound's coming from. Just stuff like that.
So those are like really good strategies. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and of course once you get the audio, I always use Spectrogram. We use Audacity. Monongahela's got some good videos up. I have a video on my YouTube on how we do that. And it takes work. I mean, it took me a couple years, but once you learn the known animal sounds in the area, that's when our suspect stuff starts popping out. And, it's trial and error, but after a while, it becomes pretty easy. I can go through a lot of audio very quickly just because I know the known animals. Once you learn the signatures and you use your eyes and your ears when you're reviewing audio. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing your YouTube channel?
No, not at all. It's Chris Spencer, Toutle River Valley Skookum. It's on YouTube.
Is it TUDOR?
Toutle.
Oh, Toutle. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I can give you links.
Yeah, we can
later.
post that after the show. We can post it
Okay.
under the description after the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd love to check that out, because that's I'm here with audio, and you can't see where you are with audio. So however we can up our game will help. Like I said, I have some of those the Olympus ones that I have. They'll record 24 to 27 hours off a couple triple A's. It's just not long enough. I haven't. With the ones I got, they're only like $50, and I can't program those to just only record it.
Right.
And if you can, I don't know about it. So, and it's just the nighttime stuff that I want anyway. I just recently went and picked up one of my recorders, and I put it in a really good spot, only to have it ruined by campers coming and sitting 10 feet away from it, playing music all night long. And I'm like, okay, now I get to hear it. Maybe I'll hear them talking about a murder or something, but they kind of ruined that. But I still have probably 6 hours to go through for that evening. But on a budget, you go with what you have.
Yeah, you do what you can.
Yeah.
Jimmy, can I jump in here real quick? So
absolutely, please.
With a lot of those recorders, like the Tascam, say we utilize the Tascam DR05s and DR07s, even the DR22s for years. You can buy, monetarily speaking, you can buy external battery packs that will power and keep your recorder running for a longer period of time. I've used them for the DR05s, Tascams. So it'll buy you a couple more days, running 24/7. For those that, like Chris was saying, the SM4 units that he's purchased, they're not cheap. We're talking upwards of $800.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not cheap, but that's just an upgrade, and they've been amazing. But for those investigators, researchers, enthusiasts, whether you have a Zoom or a Tascam or a Sony, you can buy external battery packs that will power those for a couple of days. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, if you're just out camping for a weekend, those units work fantastic. If you're looking for longer term stuff, Chris has put together some fantastic units utilizing like a Sony unit or a Zoom unit where you run like a battery, such as like a motorcycle battery, a small little battery inside like an ammo can, and for weather purposes and bear proof purposes. You can run audio a lot longer than you think if you just have a little bit of know-how. And Chris's channel, he goes through a lot of that stuff. It's a really good learning curve for a lot of people, and it's not a amazing setup, but it is a setup. And so it's one of those things, going through all the plus and minuses and all the hardships we've learned over time. And I've learned a lot from Chris and others when it comes to audio, how you could prolong your audio recording. I don't expect anybody to go out there and buy a SM4 unit for $800, but they can spend, about $100 or so and get a long that will record for a week or so or longer. And those are things that are on Chris's channel that are well listed, and he showcases that very well. And I'm sure anybody that's interested could reach out to him. But it's been a learning curve, but the audio stuff is so important because it's the least intrusive thing you can do in the woods. You can put that out there and it'll record everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I hide my stuff, and you can't. The way I hide my stuff, and then I don't even really mess with the thing because we got some of the palm trees that have these like scales that come off them.
Yeah, the palmettos.
And the palm trees, they have scales that kind of the big ones are like the size of my hand. They go up, and they're cupped. So I will put my recorder in it, so it's behind. I mean, you just can't see it. But then I will take one that's fell on the ground and put it over the top to prevent it from getting wet or whatnot. But I try not to break anything, or anything. I just use what's there. And it seems to work the best for me. And it seems that I get really good stuff, but the cheaper recorders, I think, have a harder time with getting rid of certain higher frequencies, like when you have wind blowing. And if you get a whole bunch of cicadas going, my goodness, there's so much distortion going on in these recordings that it's almost like it's interfering with the recording itself.
You get a weird buzz to it.
Right.
We have the same thing happen out here. And then to your point, out there in Florida, you have humidity. And so we have a lot of cold and rainy days. All that will take away the battery power, let alone the sound, but the battery power, you put fresh batteries in these things, but if it's really cold, it's going to suck them dry really quick, or really humid. We don't really have the humidity out here. Maybe for a couple of weeks we get humidity out here in Western Washington, but nothing like what you're dealing with out there in Florida and on the East Coast and in some of those states.
Bob, you got any questions?
Yeah, I would like to know how you guys stumbled upon the nesting area.
Well, yeah. So we did not actually find the original nest area. It was found by a timber cruiser, a timber surveyor, back in May of 2015. He was out doing his job. He's been at this job for over 27 years. He was just out doing his job, marking a possible timber area, an area where they were going to possibly come through and timber it, clear cut it, all that good stuff. And he came, 27 years in the business. He was hiking out there, and he's seen everything. He's ran into bear and mountain lion and all sorts of weird stuff. But he was hiking out in this remote area back in 2015 and came across some large ground nests. And it kind of blew his mind. He'd never seen anything like this before, and it kind of spooked him out. And so he decided to hightail it out of there. And he eventually got a hold of not just the landowner, but he got a hold of a couple of DNR guys and Derek Randalls of the Olympic Project, because Derek Randalls is a landscaper by trade. 10 years prior, Derek had done some work for this land surveyor, and this individual knew that Derek was into Sasquatch, but also knew that Derek was a guide at the time, avid hiker, and also just a hunter extraordinaire. And he's Derek's seen a lot of stuff, so he invited Derek out there along with 2 DNR guys and the owner of the property, and they all hiked out to this area and saw these nests, and they all were absolutely floored by what they had seen. They had no explanation for these ground nests. They had never seen anything like that. And eventually I was invited out, a couple of days later. And that time I was down in Oregon, and I drove up from Oregon to this area up in the Olympics and got to view these nests, and I was blown away. I do a lot, up until that time, I had done a lot of off-trail hiking, exploring in California, Oregon, Washington, a little bit in Idaho. And I had never seen anything like this. I've seen lots of wood. Pardon?
Are there still nests there?
No. Well, there could be. Maybe we just not found them.
But, yeah.
As far as the original nests, 24 to date, that are spread out. You have clusters of 7 here and 4 over here and 3, and then you have a lone. I mean, they're spread out. The original 23 nests were all kind of found within a month time frame, and they were all made about the same time. But they're not. You could walk right over them now and not even recognize them. We've taken samples from them. Mother Nature's taken over. You have the snow, the rain, animals moving through this area. You have tree fall. They're not really recognizable. So no, but I have no doubt there's more out there, whether older or possibly newer, coming up in, we believe these nests are being made in the months of late February into March. Mm-hmm. And so there could be new ones this upcoming year. And that's something we can talk about in a little bit. What we're going to be focusing in on.
Yeah, it's just a matter of trying to find them.
Exactly. It's just and it's a vast area, and it's very hard to traverse through this area. And that time of year, sometimes you're dealing with snow, sometimes you're just dealing with pure wind and rain. Very difficult to traverse this area, and so we hope to find more.
Yeah. So it wasn't a by chance thing. I mean, you were fortunate enough that somebody who came across them reported it and then alerted everybody to the area.
Yeah.
So I mean, there could be new ones out there.
This individual, the original timber surveyor that found him, I mean, he never seen anything like this before, never came across anything like this before. So this area is rather special to us, and we were allowed access to this area. I mean, via keys to the gates, and then allowed to research this area for a number of years. We're still allowed to do that. Historically speaking, after, being allowed to view these nests, I wanted to know more about nests. My research up until this point wasn't about nests. I didn't even think Sasquatch made nests, wasn't in my radar, so to speak. But after the fact, thinking, well, maybe Sasquatch does make nests periodically and whatnot. I did a lot of research, and come to find out, there's been nests found in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, multiple states, and they're almost always found by timber surveyors. People are out there in remote areas that have a job to do, because the area where these nest sites that we're working with are not areas you go to hunt, you go to hike, it's off trail, it's nasty, it's not fun. And you have to really walk into them. You're not going to see them from above. You're not going to see them from afar. You literally have to walk in on these areas. And they're so strategically placed that nobody, your average person is not going to find these. And it makes sense to me.
How would you
perfectly good sense?
How would you describe these nests? Because Bobby and I have came across some things in the woods where there's just been a bundle of twigs and branches, but they aren't from the surrounding trees where they should have been. They just seem like they were brought together and balled up. And you know what I'm talking about, Bobby, when we've found, and it's just like, wait a second, this looks like a giant tumbleweed of stuff that isn't even from the trees around. I mean, it's not shaped like a nest, but it's brought in. It appears to be brought in and then kind of just flattened down. How would you guys describe what you guys find?
Yes. Well, let's start out with the premise of this. So, say there's Sasquatch in Florida, and I believe there quite likely is, or Texas or Oklahoma and some other states that I have no business researching because I don't know those areas. But I would expect those nests or bedding areas to be made out of different material, maybe look similar but different. What we're describing here in the Pacific Northwest specifically is large oval shaped, sometimes circular, but mainly oval shaped nests made of predominantly, actually thoroughly, with huckleberry, evergreen huckleberry, that they're over a foot in depth of material. And some of that material has been transported from 20, 30 yards away, 20 yards away, and transported. So it's not just the immediate area where something is gathering material. They have to move from one location, as you were describing, Jimmy, and bring it from another location. They're oval in shape, over a foot in depth, nothing but huckleberry, where you have like larger branches on the bottom, some thinner stuff up top, very mattressy like, kind of not woven together, but formulated in a certain direction. And you think of a giant bird nest. Like if you looked at eagle nests,
Yeah,
they're very similar, except everything originally. Some of our photos that have been shared are like years later, and it's all brown and there's no green on there. When these nests were originally found, they were green. The huckleberry was still green. We did an experiment years ago where Derek Randalls and I went out and rebuilt one of these nests, just for an experiment to see how much time it would take, manpower, and et cetera, et cetera. It took Derek Randalls and I about 45 minutes collectively working together to build one of these larger nests. And we watched it dilapidate over 6 months. And it stayed green for a good 3 months. And then the leaves started to fall off. They really started to brown up. And so we kind of made a guesstimation that they were being made, the original nest area was found in May. We figured maybe February or March was when they were originally made. And we still believe that because, Todd Hale and I came across a nest being made in, late February of 2020. And that was the first nest we found after 5 years or so looking for more nests. We found a new one being made. Didn't get the perpetrator, the one making it, on camera, but came close to it, real close. But they're very profound. This is not bear behavior. There's no claw marks. There's no teeth marks. There's no bear scat around. Bears typically, up here in the Pacific Northwest, they make beds. Sometimes they kind of make something like a bowl-shaped nest, and they grab surrounding material. Usually they'll scrape the bark off of a Doug fir tree and make a bed. And I come across them all the time. And I hunt bear. Chris Spencer hunts bear. We come across bear beds. And one of the things I think is most profound when people argue that they're bear beds or bear nests is that, well, first of all, there's no teeth marks, claw marks, or bear scat, is that we found them in clusters in a lot of ways. There was multiple nests made at the same time, different sizes. Bears do not congregate together. Black bears don't. They don't roam around in herds and in groups and make nests at the same time. That is not something they do, something I don't see them ever doing. And so that was really profound to us. And that's what really stood out to me with the huckleberry boughs being broken. And sometimes, you had breaks a foot off the ground where the stuff was collected. And there was breaks, 8.5, 9 feet off the ground where just the tips of this huckleberry being snapped off and collected. It definitely took something with an opposable thumb to create these nests.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like typical bear behavior to everybody just hang out and build a little nest together like the three bears, I don't want to, bring in
Goldilocks.
Right. But it's similar to I'm visioning nature's worn out beanbag, just kind of collapsed, and just hung out in for a little bit or whatnot. But it's similar in a way to what Bobby and I have found down here too, where just we don't even know what kind of twigs and branches they are, but they just don't match any of the stuff that.
Well, and then we found seemed like big bushy areas that are really matted.
Oh yeah,
down,
just
right
matted down in the middle.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's my point. It could be so. Say Sasquatch is making nests or beds, and I'm sure they do periodically. I don't think they do it all the time. They'll probably just like an elk bed down somewhere. But in your guys' area where you guys are at, it could be completely different behavior and different material. That stands to reason.
Yeah.
These nests, I'll tell you, that we're dealing with, we have a hypothesis that they're made for, they're not made all the time. They're made in this area for a specific reason. And our running idea at this point in time, and it's based on a lot of research, a lot of ideas, and a lot of stuff, is that they're made for a birthing scenario or a nursery scenario where you, at that time of year, you have certain salmon running up these creeks that are right below the nest. You have, you still have, in a lot of cases, the huckleberry is still prevalent. There's other berries out there. You have lots of different fungal units, mushrooms, and then you have the ungulates. You have, elk and deer and everything else. It is the perfect storm, the perfect scenario for something to hunker down and give birth in a really secluded area, and with the multiple size of these nests. And two of these nests that we've come across have been actually built up in the huckleberry, a few feet off the ground in the huckleberry. They won't hold any weight, but they're a mirror image of what's on the ground. It's almost like a practice nest. And that's something, having done a lot of research on the subject matter that Derek Randles had done, is that something that gorillas teach their young, make practice nests. And we came across two of those in two different areas. That blew my mind when I saw them. Like, that nest in that bush looks like the one on the ground, but much smaller. It looks like a practice nest, and it's made out of huckleberry, little thin tips.
Now, Shane, we have found stuff similar to that, but with structure. Like, you got a big structure here, big, huge structure, but down at the base of one of the trees, there's like little small structure being built down at the bottom. And it almost looks like, mom or dad's over here doing this and the baby's down here trying to replicate what they're doing. We found that several times.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I'm describing the nest, just to be clear here, because there's lots of people find different things in the woods. I kind of have a disdain. I'm just going to tell you, and no harm, no foul. But I have a little, not disdain, but when I talk about the nest specifically, I'm describing a ground nest.
Yes.
Some people would call it a structure. There's different things people find where there's more of like a roof to it. These nests don't have a roof. They have the Doug fir overhead that protects them from the rain. And by building this nest, you keep yourself off the ground, keeps you dry, warm. I don't call the nest a structure. Sasquatch may very well do that. So I've seen some weird stuff in the woods. Most of the stuff I've seen that I call structures are man-made. But when you're off trail in the middle of nowhere, Sasquatch very well may build structures. But I just want to deviate from the two, that what we're talking about is something that it is structurized. It's created, but it doesn't have a rooftop, because I've seen people send me stuff all the time where they describe a structure and almost like a teepee or something like that. And these are nothing like that. I mean, they're literally in the open in a secluded, forested area, but they are just nests. And we've not found to date, and Chris maybe could correct me, I don't think we found any structures. We found some weird breaks, some weird stuff, but not a structure in this particular area.
Chris, I want to use a word that Shane used because I think it's a good word, because a lot of times things get thrown around as facts, and you guys don't. I don't believe you guys are the ones that are throwing around your beliefs as facts. Their hypotheses and whatnot. I want to talk about wood knocks. You got a lot of audio out there. How much of that do you guys get out there? And what is your hypothesis on if they're really wood knocks? Because the reason I asked about the wood knocks is because when we get them here, they sound the same. Every wood knock sounds the same, exactly the same, no matter where we are in any of the 3 or 4 research areas we have. And you can take anything that nature has out there in nature, a log, a branch, a live branch, a dead one, and it don't even come close to making that sound. It hits the bark, there's a thud, and it's not got that home run hit with a wooden bat sound to it. What's you guys' theory, your hypothesis on what that is, or if you guys even experience that stuff?
Oh yeah. Generally speaking, if we're out and about and they're in the area, you're going to probably get some knocks. For a long time, I've had a number of experiences where we've gotten power knocks very close to us, and I take those as pop, humans are here, just a warning. But with the audio that I have out, it's interesting. They find it, and I've almost every long-term audio unit I've had out in the Nest area, as well as like 4 other areas I've recorded in. If I've been there for any period of time, they've either seen me servicing the unit or just found it themselves. At one point or another, they will power knock, if not on the tree the unit's on, right by it. It's almost like human thing here, pow. And I've had stuff that I believe is thrown objects. Usually I'm assuming rocks hitting the tree that the audio unit's on. But as far as the percussives can mean a lot of different things. First and foremost, I think it's a warning. It's letting the others in the group know, because I think they run in 2s and 3s generally, and they're letting each other know when there's a human around or there's human technology around. I think they do the same for game cameras. I've got a buddy who's actually got game camera videos where he's caught knocks on his game camera videos and there's nothing on the video. And what I've found with the audio is I get that. And these are purposely done knocks. They're not, there's a lot of natural things that cause popping, freezing, and, just changes in temperature will cause trees to pop. Of course, wind and all that. But your purposely done percussives, I like to call them percussives, you can see are in the spectrogram. They're not done naturally. But what I was going to say is, I would say, more than 50% of their communication, if they're in stealth mode, they're going to use percussive sounds. And I think they do use wood on wood. I think they do use rocks a lot. We've got a lot of occasions of rock clacks. But I also think they do biologically. I think they can do mouth pops. I think they can do chest pops. Because like you said, there's some knocks that they sound exactly the same, but we've had several instances where they're moving, where they start out further away and then they get closer, but they're exactly the same. And that tells me they're either carrying some rocks with them or they're doing it biologically. And that's something I'm still learning. I can look in spectrogram, like one of our friends, he comes up every year and he can do a hand clap. And it sounds like a wood knock. But it visually in spectrogram looks different than like if you went out and whacked a tree. And I've actually done experiments with rock on wood, wood on wood, rock on rock, with my audio. So I have visually looked at different materials being hit together, and you can't always tell, but a lot of times I can with like these claps.
Yeah.
It actually looks different than if you were to do the percussives with rocks or wood. The other thing, I think a lot of the big percussives, a lot of the really loud gunshot like percussives, I think those are just really big live branches being broken. Yeah. I believe they behave just like gorillas and chimps when they get upset about something. And generally, when they do knocks that are intentionally for us to hear, that's an intimidation factor right there. And I think a lot of times those are actually big branches being broken, because we've had knocks, we've had percussives like that happen, and then gone out and found, trees, 5 to 6 inches in diameter, snapped, fresh live trees snapped in that area. And that will create a percussive sound like a gunshot
Yeah.
when you do that. And that occurs a lot. I mean, I could ramble on a lot, but the
No.
percussives are a big thing, and you should pay attention to them. And honestly, we miss them a lot. I carry a head recorder. That's the other thing. When I go in the field, I have an audio recorder going the whole time we're out there. From the minute we get out of the rig,
Yeah.
we had several occasions where we got out of Shane's truck. We had whoops going off that we didn't hear because we were talking.
Mhm.
We had knocks going off. Last year, Todd Hale left a recorder at our rigs, and as we were returning to our rigs, I thought I heard something, but we were talking. I didn't know. But later on, when Todd reviewed his audio recorder, there was a power knock right by our rigs. They were letting each other know, oh, they're coming back.
Right.
That's how I took that. So I think percussive sounds are easily missed by humans because most people aren't out there looking for Bigfoot.
Right.
Most people are out there hiking, camping, visiting with their friends, or hunting. And when you're deer hunting or whatever you're hunting, that's what you're focused on. You hear a knock, you just blow it off. It could be anything, But I think if you're in an area that has Sasquatch and they're paying attention to you, you're going to get percussives.
Yeah. I specifically, when I get to a location, 100% of the time I started doing this, I have 2 recorders going, 2 audio recorders. I have my Zoom H1 and then my strap on my shoulder, and I have one of the Olympus is in a shirt pocket or in a pocket or whatever sticking out. But I also have these sunglasses that have a little tiny 1080p camera right in the middle.
Cool.
So it's on when I get out. It's on as I get out, because there've been times I pulled up to a research area, and as I'm opening the door, I hear a knock. And I'm like, damn it, that'd have been great. I mean, there was no other sound. The truck was off, pop, and it was great. And I'm like, Carrie Arnold used to preach, ABF, always be filming, and then he would always say always be filming, but he would always talk about how we just got there and got out of the truck and heard all the stuff, but we weren't recording.
Mm.
And for me, it's like, I'm not going to miss that opportunity. So literally when I'm getting out of my truck, I've got 4 things recording. 2 are video and 2 are audio. But the Sony shoulder cam that I have records in 60 frames per second, 4K. On one of our videos on our YouTube page, I'm with this little bitty bird watching parabolic, thing you can buy off Amazon for like $50. And I'm walking, and I literally follow this little path in the grass that doesn't make any sense. It looked like somebody took a paint roller and just rolled a flat spot through the grass. There's no footprints. There's no hoofs, no anything. No reason why there should be a flat, worn out path with no kind of prints. And I followed it right to a print. And it was a great print. Had some sawgrass. It was dried up in the marsh. And I bent over and in the video, you can see I put my my parabolic down on the ground. I bend over to pick a piece of sawgrass out of the print. I'm also carrying about 30 pounds of plaster in my backpack, and I felt the weight of it for the first time when I bent over. So I stood up, and I was like, and then 190 yards across in the tree line, three wood knocks, whack, whack, whack. So a little shoulder cam that I got from Sony, it's like a CVR 1000 or something. It recorded those tree knocks from 190 yards away, so it's got pretty good audio on it as well. I'm always recording audio 100% of the time, because a lot of times you're not going to see anything,
Yeah.
but you're going to hear it. And I've got tinnitus in both my ears, and I'm half deaf because of it. So the audio is, it's key for me as well. But getting out with it already going is a must, because that's when, like you're saying, that's when the warning pops could go off.
In my experience, and every experience I've had in the woods, it's very short. It's short and sweet. If they make their presence known, you might get 30 seconds of sound, and then it's done. You're not going to get that chance again. That's why I always have it running, because there were times when I was researching by myself, uh, back in 2015, where I had a few instances where stuff happened. And for one, if you watch the series Eli did, I had an experience where something yelled at me. It was just like, ha! And I had my Tascam in my hoodie pocket. A lot of good that did.
Right.
I had a little cheap, video camera thing that I was using. The audio picked it up, but it barely picked it up, and I was able to amp that a little bit. But what I heard is you hear on the video and stuff, and it was after that point I got serious about it, and I used one of my old headlamp straps, and I put my recorder on top of my head up here,
Mm-hmm.
and I adjust the sensitivity a little bit, but I don't miss anything that way.
Right.
Because when they do something, if they do something of significance, it's generally very short and sweet. They're not going to spend a lot of time harassing you. I mean, we've had instances where they're whooping around us, and I mean, the entire amount of time where we got whoops around us maybe lasted 5 minutes on and off. But that was a long period of time. Usually, honestly, I don't think. I think we're of interest to them, but if you're going into an area that they consider theirs, they're going to acknowledge you, and usually they'll do a knock or whatever, and then they just leave. They're like, humans are here, let's go.
Yeah, these hairless things are here bothering us again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
For
ahead, Shane.
context, real quick, I think this is important if you don't mind.
No, absolutely.
a bit. For context, I'd love for Chris, because we've mentioned visually looking at audio. When I first started out, like most of us do, we record audio, we put some earbuds in or whatnot, and we listen to the audio, and we're like, oh, that was cool. What I navigated to eventually, and what Chris has become very good at, and others of the Olympic Project, specifically David Ellis, is visually looking at audio on a spectrogram. And we mentioned that tonight, but Chris, can you explain? I mean, I think it's so cool because I think more people can do it when it comes to visual signatures. Your ears play tricks on you, but your eyes, not so much. And so visually looking at stuff via spectrogram, Chris, can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, a lot of times we've been out, we've thought we've heard stuff, and then when I get back and I throw it up on the spectrogram, I use a DASTI. It has a spectrogram, and it creates a visual signature of whatever audio you have, and everything has its own signature. And a lot of times I'll come back thinking, oh yeah, we heard this or that, and I'll throw it up in spectrogram and be like, oh, that was a dog. Oh, that was a woodpecker. A lot of times where we think we've heard something, it's been something perfectly explainable. But because we are going out looking for Bigfoot, a lot of things become Bigfoot. And everybody, I don't care who you are susceptible to confirmation bias, including me. And what the spectrogram does, it gives you the ability to say, okay, I was wrong. A lot of people won't like saying they're wrong, but you got to own it. If I'm wrong about something, I'll be the first to tell you. There are vocalizations that in 2015 I thought were Bigfoot that I know now were elk or coyote, and I don't have a problem saying, hey, I was wrong about this. There's a lot of audio out on the internet right now, a lot of famous audio recordings that are coyote. I know they are. I've looked at, I don't know, I'm over 40,000 hours of audio review right now. I've looked at everything in the Pacific Northwest that makes noise at night. I'm pretty confident when I look at canine.
Right. Right.
And that's the other thing. Known animals, I don't think we give enough credit to. They can make a huge variety of sounds. Coyotes, each individual pack of coyotes has their own sound. Yeah. Every area that I record in, the pack of coyotes in that area, I get to know, and they're different than the coyotes even 10 miles away. I had a recording area where I first started the coyotes. It was a smaller pack, and that pack was further deeper into the woods. They sounded more mournful, more wolf-like. And then I had an area 13 miles away that was close to human habitation. And that's where I had bigger packs. You'll find bigger packs of coyotes closer to humans because we create food opportunities.
Right.
And that bigger pack sounded like your classic yippee yippee pack, whereas the ones that were way out in the woods, they sounded like wolves. The coyotes that we have, coyotes in the nest area, they've got their own sound. We've found that if our target subjects are in the area, there's one pack in the nest area, they start doing alarm calls. They do warning calls. And it's just, and that's the other thing. I log everything into a spreadsheet. When I do the audio, I'm keeping notes. I did a 2-year project where I logged every sound into a spreadsheet. Wes Liam from Squatcher Matrix is going to be coming out with a report on that. He's a statistician. He does statistical analysis on that. I just log it and I hand it off to him, and he can run stats on it. And anyways, now I log the unknown and the suspicious stuff. I'm not logging everything anymore, but what I'm getting at is statistically, Wes came back. He's like, you realize within 12 hours of your unknown sound showing up, you've got these coyotes, and sometimes within minutes of unknown sounds, these coyotes are doing a very specific call all the time. There's a connection there. And that's the type of stuff I look for. I probably went off on a tangent on you.
No. You're giving everything of what Shane was asking. I got some follow-up questions with that because I believe, and I'm okay with being wrong too. I would like to share some of vocals that I have with you. Have you gotten coyote calls and their calls at the same time, like them making calls that set off the coyotes? You know what I mean?
Well, okay, yeah. I've had vocalizations, I believe, are target subjects, and then within minutes had the warning location calls that the coyotes do. I've never had an instance. I know a lot of people say they have, and they show it, where the coyotes are all howling like coyotes, where you got a whole pack of coyotes howling, and there'll be one low vocal, and people want to say that howl is definitely Bigfoot. It's not. Coyotes make low howls. That's one thing I kind of got away from, but I wanted to touch on is coyotes have a very wide range in their vocalizations. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but out here in my experience in the Pacific Northwest, I don't get Sasquatch calls intermixed with coyote calls. I'll get a possible Sasquatch call, and then the coyotes may do warning calls a little bit later, but I don't get this Sasquatch intermixing their calls with the canines. The canines, I get domestic dogs. A lot of times domestic dogs, because they run a deeper and a flatter vocalization than the coyotes. That a lot of times I believe people are thinking is a Sasquatch. It's actually a domestic dog. Hound dogs. We have you get hound hunters out there going for coons, and especially this time of year, hound dogs sound really creepy in the woods.
Yeah.
And there's the hound dogs, man. They get mistaken for Sasquatch all the time.
They got a whole tone of their own compared to the coyotes. The other thing that I wanted to mention when you talked about seeing them on the spectrogram. So one of our guys on our team, me and Richard Farabee, we went out to one of the research areas that's close to him, and we had what sounded like a gorilla just grunting behind us. It sounded like it was right behind us. It just kept going, and I've got my parabolics on, but my feet are in the leaves, and it sounds like I'm tap dancing on 6 boxes of Rice Krispies, and but I hear it outside the headphones, but it's on audio. But when I brought it back, and because I'm a singer songwriter, I want to say musician, I play some instruments, but I'm not good enough to be that, but I have a Persona Studio One recording equipment and software, and I have a spectrogram that shows the range and the frequencies and whatnot. Now when I put this stuff in my spectrogram, the grunts are there and they're registering audio wise, but they're not registering frequency wise. It's like they're lower frequency than what my equipment, my software has. You can hear them. You can hear the leaves. You can hear me talking. You can see all the waves from all that other background noise. But these grunts are just not registering in the frequency. Have you came across anything like that where you have had audio that was just, I don't want to say infrasound, because this didn't seem like infrasound. It just sounded like a gorilla 30 feet behind us grunting at us for about 10 seconds. Have you come across anything like that? Experienced
No,
that with your audio?
So I'm not one where I'm not opposed to Sasquatch being able to do infrasound, but I think a lot of things and a lot of animals can do infrasound,
Yeah.
whether they're doing it intentionally or not. I don't know. They might be doing it unintentionally just because of their size, creating a deeper vocal. Infrasound starts at 20 decibels. Most our audio units can't pick up infrasound in the first place. As a rule of thumb, if you're hearing it, it should show up in the spectrogram. I've never had something not show up in the spectrogram if you can hear it. It might be how you're setting up your spectrogram,
Might be.
but there's going to be something in that spectrogram if you can hear it.
Yeah.
A lot of you gotta play, like, if you go to my YouTube, I show you how I set up the spectrogram in Audacity. It's the same way Monongahela does it, and if those low grunts, I bet you they're there. You're just not recognizing them. They're probably there.
Yeah,
You should
I hear
send me
them,
that clip. I
but
want
I
to see
don't. But I hear them, but I
Yeah.
don't see them on the spectrogram.
Right.
And again, it could just be because it's all digital. It just could be just a setting, because I don't have a whole lot of experience with recording stuff. I
it's
just
your
plug into the mic and
program,
scream into it.
It's your program. It's designed for studio recording.
Yeah.
And they are really heavy in the mid frequencies, and
Yeah.
they really
That
tend to cut the lows and the highs out because that just muds up a recording.
Yeah.
That's what I was also about to say.
Yeah.
Exactly what you just said, Bobby. A lot of those that program is designed to take out.
Yeah,
Certain-
it's designed to record music with. And
Yeah.
super high and super low frequencies just mud recordings up really, really bad. So they've just eliminated that out of there. That's why you're not seeing it in there. It's not something they want in there. So.
Bob, what kind of questions you got? You got any more questions?
No, nothing offhand that I can think of. It's been very informative, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and basically use your YouTube page as my Bible, because I got a lot of learning curves, for what we do, but I'm on a budget, we aren't getting paid for any of this, so
you got my email. Anytime you got any questions, just email me, man.
You bet. You were asking about you were asking about some audio that you'd like to hear. Is that what you said?
Oh, what you just described.
Oh, yeah.
Send me a clip of that. I want to check it out.
And I also got audio of out in Hungryland where there was these 3 lower howls. Ooh, ooh, but they were farther off. And then the coyotes went off. So, okay, I can't do this in the camera. So these howls were here. The farther off ones were here. Then there was closer. The coyote ones were here. And the coyotes just went yipping and yipping and yep, and they weren't hitting that tone of those 3 farther off ones. It could have just been, if they were coyotes, they could have been just locator calls,
Right.
But they were lower, and none of these coyotes were even at that range. And then at the very end of those coyotes, so the farther away ones here, the coyotes were here, right here, closer than the coyotes. At the end was a waka wah, waka. Waka. I mean, waka wah. And I'm like, is that coyote? Have you ever heard a coyote make waka sounds?
No, they don't. They don't.
Wah?
They
I'll
generally
send this
don't.
to you, man. It
Yeah,
drives me
I'd like to
crazy.
hear.
It drives me crazy. And when it's spooky going out in the woods by yourself at night, it just is. It's and I was out there and talking to my recording, false sense of security, making it, hey, I'm talking to myself, and I'm literally talking to myself. It's like, I'm going to look down this trail. I'm going to be quiet when I do, and as soon as I finished the words quiet when I do, there was the ooh, way off in the distance. And then closer, you could hear the coyotes. And as soon as they finished, I start to say, I look at my recorder and start to say the timestamp, or the time it is, 1:42 a.m. or whatever, and then there's a waka wah, waka. I mean, it is insane that I'm hearing waka,
Yeah.
waka wah, and there I've listened to it over and over and over again. I'm not mistaking what I'm hearing, but in this area, there have been reports of other people reporting that they've heard what they believe to be Sasquatch with lower ranges, and the coyotes kind of like one is setting the others off, and then at the end it sounds like a coyote's getting ripped in half. But they already sound like they're getting ripped in half the time anyway. They're just noisy yippers. But I would love to send that to you. It's not going to be the best recording.
Don't worry about it.
What I had to do, because I can go in and put a stamp on a track and put one here and one here, and I can bring what's on this side of the stamp down, and I can bring what I've got in the middle up, so I can bring it up, because it's hard to hear and you want to hear it. But I haven't figured out how to isolate and get all the nature's white noise is so loud sometimes. You don't hear it with your ears when you're out there, but when you're recording, it's just so loud. But I will send this to you. It's at the very end. It's just, it's 7, 10. I don't remember what time I said it was. And then there's that waka waka, and I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here, because that I don't think was a dog, and it was way closer than the rest of the. It was way closer than the rest of the coyotes. You can hear the volume difference. And it's in a place that FWC has dubbed no man's land. On one side, there's a canal that goes down, I don't know, 1.5 miles, and then it's about 150 yards wide. And then there's another canal on that side. So it's just this long strip, and it's marsh. And when it's wet, when I was going through it at the deepest, it was about up to my crotch. And I came across like a 4-foot alligator, but he just kind of swam away. Came across some hogs and got to the higher ground. Came across one of the best prints that I've ever seen. Bobby's seen it. He's like, why didn't you cast that? I'm like, because the stuff that I put out in this little area was all moved, and that was a distraction for me. I got focused on the things that I left were scattered, and I forgot all about that track. I came back the next day. I'm like, I want to cast it. Hogs just tore up the entire area. I was like, damn it. So now I kind of stay focused. I'm looking for prints. I'm looking for the other signs, the breaks, the tree breaks. And we'll find trees that big around, all broke off at the same height, 3.5 feet, 4 feet, just looking like Bobby and I describe it as like two transformers had a fight in the woods, and just destroyed the trees. There's no rhyme or reason for them to be broke off where they're broke off. And then some of them are just stabbed into the ground 6 inches, making X's. A lot of times we see the X's. First thing we do is we look up. Treetops can fall and they can land, and what they're going to do is act like a dart and stab into the ground. Right. But when you look up and you see that there's no trees missing any limbs that big around or treetops, and you find that some of these trees aren't even the same type of trees where you're at, they were brought in, it's not that hard to put the puzzles together. We also got some stuff out here. It's called horsehair fungus. Is that what it's called, Bobby?
Yep.
It looks just, Bobby and I were out there and we were getting pockets of this hair. There's a Sasquatch out here going through chemo. There's just so much hair stuck on, and it looks like hair. It feels like hair, 8, 12, 15 inches long. I had some stuffed. I'm like, where can I put someone? So I took some and I stuck it behind my phone in my phone case. I'm not going to lose my phone. I might fall out my pocket or anything like that, and then like over time, we're like, there's no way there's this much hair. It's just this isn't right. It took a lot of critical thinking, and Bobby was the one that found out that in the Scrub Oak area. Bobby, go ahead and explain to him, where it's found specifically.
It tends to grow really prolifically in scrub oaks, live oaks. I live on 10 acres of somewhat scrub forest, and I can walk out to my property in 2 minutes. I can find some of that hair. It's a type of fungus. It's a type of moss, basically. But it looks like hair. When you come across it, you're like, oh my God, here got this blob of hair, and
it's a lot like what you said, Chris. You said you got to know what's out there, plant life, animal life, and whatnot. Because I explained to people, that I've done on little lives for about it, a little public service announcement. Richard dubbed one of the videos was, if you go somewhere and you find a legit print, and then you find an X or some kind of structure that you can't explain because it doesn't seem natural in any way, and then you find this big glob of hair, all these puzzles are lining up,
Right.
And if you don't know that, okay, if you don't know what you're looking at and then you're new to it and you see something that looks like it could be a footprint, and you see something that looks like it could be a structure, but it's really not, it's nature, because nature's pretty savvy. And then you see this hair that you think is hair, you're like, damn, I'm in a spot that's golden. I mean, I got one out here brushing his hair, he's stabbing things in the ground, he's just chilling. You can get really fooled really quick.
Oh yeah.
And so I am not on you guys' level, because I don't know my tracks. I can't tell you the difference between a deer track and a pig track. I'm not looking for those. I'm looking for big feet. So to me, it's irrelevant, but it shouldn't be irrelevant, because if one of those things gets snatched up by one of those big feet, maybe I would know what it's eating. It's
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If there's all of a sudden the pig track ends and there's a big foot track right beside it, I wouldn't know if it was deer or pig. Those little details are something that I should probably learn. Just when I'm out there, I'm more hyper focused on what's not natural, because a lot of times I can look at a tree. I did this with my wife. I'm like, look at that tree, tell me what you see. And she's like, a tree. I'm like, yeah, well, what else? Leaves. I'm like, anything else? What about the 5 nests and the 2 squirrels and the 5 lizards that are, I mean, I'm looking for things that aren't naturally supposed to be there growing, or whatnot. I can look across the lake and see something that just doesn't make sense with the rest of the landscape, type of thing. Because I know what it's supposed to look like, but there's something off about it.
Right.
And that's kind of how my mind works when I'm out there looking at things. Yeah, that looks familiar. And it's usually almost 100% of the time, it's the shadows that are playing the tricks.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah.
We all start out somewhere. We don't start out, knowing everything, but it's a learning curve. The Olymp Project, a lot of us as individuals have spent a lot of time out in the woods, and it's trial and error. You make some mistakes, and then you learn from those mistakes, and you move on. I mean, and the biggest recommendation I can make to anybody, you guys, even to myself, is find an area, whether there's Sasquatch reports out there or not. Just find an area that is conducive for animals, and maybe a Sasquatch area, and then stick it out. Record the audio. We spent 2 years recording every single night in one area, every single night. And Chris spent lots of time.
40,000 hours.
Oh yeah, every single night. But identifying every percussive, every known animal, and then we got some suspect stuff. But stay in one area. Be an expert in that area, knowing your known animals, your coyotes, your hogs, your elk, your deer, your bear, your cougars, your birds, your owls. Owls are crazy. And just getting to do that. And then you're doing your due diligence by doing that. And all of a sudden, when something happens, whether, you're recording audio in the area and you hear and then visually look at it and go, oh, that stands out. Or you come across a track that you can't identify. It stands out. Or a scuff mark. You're like, that doesn't look like a hog. That doesn't look like a deer or a bear, a double bear stamp.
Yeah.
The more time you spend in one area researching it, when you come across something, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And that's key. And I mean, when I got into this, real quick, I mean, I used to be an ambulance chaser. Oh, there's an encounter over here. I drive over here. I do this and that. Kind of like Derek Randall's of the Olymp Project used to do. But we've come to the point now where we're pretty confident. We kind of know where our target subjects are at periodically, and we just stick to those areas. And we've accumulated over the years a lot of really, really good stuff. I mean, I believe so. A lot of really good stuff through the hard work of Chris Spencer's and whatnot, and Todd Hills, and you name it, within the Olymp Project. We've accumulated a lot of stuff, and we can back it up with data. We
Yeah.
can back it up. And we kind of now got a picture of when we think the Sasquatch are moving through these areas. We can't say that 100%, obviously, but we're pretty confident about that. And we're pretty confident when to get out there and look for nests, when we think they're going to be made, what time of year, what the terrain is like. There's stuff we can look at. And so anybody out there that wants to or is involved in this research, stick to an area, learn the fauna, learn the animals.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing. And be very subjective when it comes to this stuff, because we've all been proven wrong many, many times.
Yeah.
We're so confident that was a Sasquatch, and we're all biased, like Chris said earlier. You got to stand back, look at Occam's razor. What's the most obvious thing that it could be? And so, it's a learning curve for everybody, and there's no experts in this field. We're all just doing our best we can, but do the best you can.
Yeah. I'm going to make a pretty generalized statement for me about the nest on what I think of what you guys are dealing with. I'm not there and I haven't seen them, but with the way you guys describe, and please, if I'm wrong on if that's what you guys think, absolutely shut me down. But the way you're describing the nest and how they're done and how they're multiple together, I think it would be safe to say that they're not just going there and building the nest for the night. They're staying for a while.
Yes. Yeah. That's our general opinion. And if you look at, and people hate to hear this. I don't know your audience, but
our audience is great. They're very open-minded and interested in just about everything everybody has to say, because we're all learning this together, man.
Exactly. And I try to never state stuff as a fact. But, obviously we don't have gorillas and, known primates running, other than humans, running around the Pacific Northwest. But these nests mirror gorilla nests. So the closest thing we can come across via pictures, and we brought zoologists out here, we brought primatologists, and they all say the same thing, that they're very mirror image of what, known great apes do.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, mentioned, Jimmy, we do not believe these nests were made for one night, a one-night stand like gorillas do. They'll build a nest and move on. These were made for a period of time, whether that's a couple of days, a week, I don't know, but made for a purpose and made for most definitely more than one night. The hair we pulled out of these nests is primate hair. That's undebatable.
Right.
It's primate hair that doesn't match elk hair, bear hair, any of the known subjects that you would assume would be in this area. It doesn't match that at all. Not human hair. And so I agree. And that's just you talking with us right now, Jimmy. That's a great assumption. And I'm right. And that's where we're going with this, is that when these nests are made, they're made for a reason, made for a purpose, and made for a season of time to be spent in them. Whether, like I said, a couple of days, a week, I don't know. That I don't know, but not made for an overnight, extravaganza.
Right. So when you guys are passing through and you guys are out there, this is one of my questions for you guys, both of you, because there's a lot of people out there that have different strategies when they go out. They try to do calls, they try to do tree knocks, they try to play loud music, or whatever to draw them in. I have a suspicious feeling that you guys are none of those. You guys just go out there and you're waiting to see if they're acknowledging you, and then you're just collecting the data from it. Am I correct on that?
So yeah, we're basically we go out, we bust our butts hiking off trail during the day, and then we go back to camp. And if they're there and they're interested, they'll come visit us. But we're not knocking or calling. We have done knocks and we have done calls before. I tend to try to stay away from that just because I'm recording audio at the time. We're pretty good about, marking down the time if someone does something, but sometimes we aren't. And there's been times where someone's done a vocal. I've been on big campouts where you can't keep track of everybody, and someone does a vocal, and it's like, okay, where'd this come from? And it just it muddles everything. So we try not to do that. a lot of times, me and Shane, at least once a year, I will say probably once a year, we get some activity around our camp at night. Sometimes there's been years where more has happened, but generally speaking, not a lot happens. But at least once a year, we get someone comes in and visits us and throws a rock in camp or screams at us or pushes a tree over.
Yeah.
If they're, different groups are going to do different things. The Sasquatch in one area might be more likely to do stuff around humans, whereas in the nest area, I'll be honest, that group's shy. They pretty much avoid us. My general opinion over the last 4 years has been that when we go in the area, they might acknowledge us. They might do some warning knocks. But generally speaking, I think when we go in, they go into stealth mode and they just ignore us.
Yeah, we don't do any of the knocks, but only just because we can't replicate. We can't replicate what the noise is that we're hearing. And I will do. I grew up in the '80s hair band stuff, So, and being a vocalist, a singer, I got a pretty good range and a pretty good set of lungs with some power behind it. And I'd say probably 30% of the time when I do my screens, we get something, a knock. Even in Georgia, when we went up to see with Johnny Two Bears and did one of the screams in their research area, we got knock. But what we've noticed about it is only one time I can scream again, and they won't do it again.
They figure it, yeah, you might trick them once, but once they figure out it's you, they'll, generally speaking, they're going to shut up.
Yeah.
There are a number of areas in Washington that used to be known for being very noisy that are very quiet now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have gone in and done a lot of calls, done a lot of knocking, and now guess what? That place that
they're onto you.
Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, for me, it's really simple. If you look at like every researcher, investigator, enthusiast that gets out there, they want to get out there and walk around at night and beat trees and yell. I mean, that's just kind of what people have been taught over the years. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you look at just look at the numbers. The vast majority of people that have seen a Sasquatch are people out hiking, fishing, hunting, just average people doing average things. And so my approach, since I had my encounter in 2011, that solidified Sasquatch for me, looking back on that, what was I doing? Well, I wasn't doing anything Bigfoot, knocking on trees or anything. I was out hiking off trail. I was chopping firewood. I was out fishing, doing average things. And I had to reflect upon that months and years later and like, okay, why did that experience happen? And so I'm of the opinion now that, and I agree. I mean, I don't think you're, almost, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, you're going to go out there and see a Sasquatch, whether you have a therm in your hand or you're just hiking around. I like to get off trail, make myself known, be unpredictable so that maybe something, if there's Sasquatch in the area, they're like, what is this Yahoo going off trail, walking around, urinating here, he left a scent trail, and then come back to my camp. Maybe I'll make myself interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe something will come and check me out. I've done so many night walks, and I've had a few unique things happen over the years, but when I look at the numbers, it's so small. You go out there, and then when it comes to knocks and yells and all that stuff, I think you just be interesting, be unpredictable.
Right.
Because humans are so predictable. We stick to trails, get off trail. Be careful, but get off trail, do some hiking around, some exploring. If there's something in the area and you have a good camp spot, whether it's in the campground or not, because there's many good sightings around campgrounds, because people are curious, but we're also predictable. I like to be unpredictable, and I think there's something to that.
Yeah, you guys have brought a lot to the table tonight. I'm definitely going to be checking out your channel, Chris, because your audio and it seems like audio is kind of the place to be for when you're not around. Noises are going to be made and whatnot. And if you're good about hiding your audio equipment and blending it in with the natural environment, it's going to be harder to pick out. I'm kind of in that same boat. You know, we got a couple guys on our team that our audio is key. So I'm going to be going to your channel and figuring out how I can improve and get more life out of my recorders as well. Um, I want to hit this question that Bobby put up there from Jedi Sasquatch. He says, Shane, where can I see more of yours and more of the Olympic Project's productions?
Oh, well, just check out the olympicproject.com. We do have, it's not updated that often, but it is updated, here and there, olympicproject.com. Check out Small Town Monsters. If you're not familiar with that, we've done, we get contacted all the time by major production companies. I can name every TV show that's on there right now that's contacted us, and we turn them down respectively. TV's made for TV. It's got to be entertainment. I love Small Town Monsters because they keep it real.
Yeah.
And anyways, that's that. And then, check out stuff like Chris Spencer's YouTube channel. Hopefully you guys provide a link for that. It's fantastic. I'm going to be starting a YouTube. I've never wanted to do one. I'm going to be starting one up. It's going to be called Sasquatch in the Mist. People have asked me since 2013 to do one, and I just never had the pull to do it, but I'm going to do it. And it's going to be Sasquatch in the Mist, and you're going to find a lot of updates there. You're going to see me hitting the woods. It'll be for some and not for others. I don't care. It's just something I feel compelled and actually really want to do. But yeah, that's, and then you can find us on, all of us as individuals on Instagram, Facebook. Just look up our names. Yeah. Reach out to us if you want. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So, Chris, I'm definitely going to send you some audio stuff. Again, it's not fantastic, like great quality where there's no background noise. In all my audio, there's a bunch of background noise because apparently I've got
all the audio I get has background noise, man.
Lots of as I'm walking through the forest and woods and whatnot. Shane, we didn't even get to your first initial encounter. That'd be great to hear that sometime. I don't know if you guys would be even interested in coming back sometime down the road, when you've got more to share or you've listened to my stuff and you can come on the air and say, Jimmy, that was a raccoon. You're done. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate you guys having us on because I just love a good conversation and I just love to talk Sasquatch. So anytime you want us back or us as individuals, please invite us back. You guys, I love your approach, your mindset. We do a few of these podcasts over the years, and some are better than others, and love the fact that just really good conversation and open-mindedness, and none of us are experts, so we go learn from each other.
Yeah, I reached out to you, Shane, 7 to 8 weeks ago, probably originally, because we were still kicking around the idea. Bobby and I have been kicking this around for years, and finally I was like, dang it, if we don't just do it, we're not gonna do it, But
we've talked about it at least 5 years.
Yeah,
at least 5 years.
Where it starts.
Yeah, but we want to have people on that are experienced out there, and you don't have to be experienced to have an encounter either. I wasn't experienced when I had mine. I was 7, terrified. But we also want to be able to learn as we go. And, the more details and the more things that people can bring to the table, somebody might think maybe I had a Sasquatch experience and didn't realize it because I heard something and I just thought it was nature. And it could be these knocks we're talking about, or the tree snaps that we're talking about, or seeing other things that might just open people's eyes, make them more aware. Awareness is kind of the key for all this. But again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I've learned a lot, and I got a lot more to learn. I got a lot more to learn, Chris. I'm going to be studying your channel a bit. And I will be sending you those audios. And Shane, man, thanks for coming on. Tell everybody else from the team, we'd love to have them sometime on and talk with them because everybody's got their own perspective. And whatnot, but if they can, they can. If they can't, they can't. It's all good. We're still gonna love them no matter what. I want to thank you guys for coming on again, and everybody in the chat, Miss Diane and Cassie. You guys have been keeping things rolling. We've got a lot of great people that have just been inquiring about, what's going on. And I think the Olympic Project's pretty important to this topic, because, you know, if you guys have got that much data going on and 4,000 hours of audio is a long time. I don't know if I've listened to that much music in my life. I have. I'm a big music guy, but I would be sick of music. When I listen to
you listen to Danger that much.
just Danger alone, I know. Yeah, I don't. It takes somebody dedicated to listen to that much audio, because I would think sounds just start blending, you know.
I enjoy, because I catch a lot of cool known animal stuff. If you go to my YouTube channel, most of the stuff up there is known animal stuff I've caught over the years. I mean, last year I caught a cougar killing a coyote. That was pretty interesting. So this year was the year of the bear. I got a lot of bear activity around the recorders. I'm interested in it. I love the outdoors. I'm always been into nature and the animals, and I've learned, you know, I used to consider myself a pretty competent outdoorsman before I started, and I've learned so much more investigating Sasquatch. I've learned more about the known animals than I ever would have learned if I hadn't started investigating Sasquatch. So
yeah, it's definitely a fun experience. And Bobby and I mean, we'll be the first to admit, we don't get out nearly as much as we would like to. We both have full-time jobs, families, home life. I have a special needs daughter at home that is exhausting. She's an outdoor girl, but she's never been to the woods. She has to go outside and stay outside. And so we just don't have the time that we would like to have.
Same here.
And Bobby's...
We're all in the same boat, brother.
Yeah. Bobby's 3 hours away. And for me, I've always preached it, and I'll say it a million times, and it'll be something that'll be on my headstone. My family will come before Sasquatch any given day. So
we used to get together
love it.
3-4 times a month, and then, you know, life happened, stuff got in the way. My wife broke her back.
Carly got diagnosed with
Jimmy's
autism.
Daughter got older, got diagnosed, and it's you know, life gets in the way.
Yeah, you guys could do a show just on that, and that there's so much truth to that, because nobody is getting paid to do this. I mean, it's off everybody's dollar, their own time, you know, and own money and everything else, and no one's getting paid to do this. This is a passion. You know, I call it a job without getting paid, but it's a hobby, a job I love to do.
Yeah.
And I get out more than most, but not as much as I need to. But, you know, we have stuff going on, you know. Jimmy, you got stuff going on. Bobby, you got stuff on. I know Chris does. I know half the Olympic Project does. We do what we can with what we can. And that's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on, and everybody in the chat. Thanks for coming on. I think next week we were going to try to have Chris Benoit, is that how you pronounce it? He's in West Virginia or Virginia. I haven't got a confirmation for sure that he's going to be on, but it's going to be another late show because he works at Amazon and he doesn't get off till like 7. So I believe it's Christmas Eve, since Christmas is on a Wednesday, and I ain't trying to have people leave their families to talk Sasquatch. I know a lot of people would. A lot of people like it. Yeah, I'll talk anything as long as I can get away from my family, but not me. But we're going to try to get that locked down. If we can't get a commitment, we just won't have it. We won't bore people with coming on and rambling. You know, we want to give people some stuff that they can learn, stuff that they can take with them. We're not just here. I would like to keep in contact with you guys on a regular basis. I don't want this to be a content thing, because I feel like I've just scratched the surface of what I can learn from you guys and the rest of the team. I haven't even got to pick anybody's brain from the rest of the team. One last question. Are you guys, and there's no wrong answer, it's not bad because I have nothing against them, because I'm curious about joining it myself. Are you guys affiliated with the BFRO, or have you been? And if you have been or are, how beneficial has it been for you?
I'll tell you right now, we have members within the Olympic Project that are BFRO members. We have members within the Olympic Project that were former BFRO members. Derek Randalls was a part of the BFRO, the founder, way back when. We still have currently BFRO members in the Olympic Project group. And people like Chris Spencer. So his his wife, Rebecca, she's part of the BFRO. But Chris is also a part of I'll say another 2 organizations. One's a pretty well-known one, the NAAAC. He's a part of that, NOAC. And he's working on a whole nother, you could run the show 4 hours and just not even scratch the surface. But yeah Chris is all over the place in a good way, very confined, but working with multiple groups. So as far as, just like any organization, the BFRO, there's a lot of great members that I was just hanging out with a few this past weekend on a camp out, and really good researchers, investigators.
How beneficial has it been for you, Chris? Do you feel like it's been really beneficial? Like you've learned some, have you learned techniques from that you use today, or the way you interview people or whatnot? Is that been something that you've carried things along with you?
Just over time, working with different individuals that are members of the BFRO, I've learned from them, and it's, I don't look at the organizations. I'm more focused on the subject personally, and so when I meet somebody that's working on the subject, that's who I connect with, and that's who I learn from. Some of the people I learn from are in the BFRO, some are in the NAAAC, some aren't affiliated with anybody. For me, it's I want to know everything I possibly know about these animals because I know they're real. And the great thing about the BFRO, they have the largest public database that you can go to. And if you're just getting into this subject and you want to find an area to do research in, that's the best place to go. Pick an area with lots of sightings that are reported in the BFRO. What Matt Moneymaker did has helped every Bigfoot researcher for the last 20 years.
Whether they know it or not.
Yeah, whether they know it or not, even the people that badmouth the BFRO, they use the BFRO information.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They use that data, and that is a valuable and one of the most groundbreaking things for this subject is what Matt Moneymaker created.
Yeah.
So absolutely, it's easy to get in a negative frame of mind, but look at the positives. Everybody brings something to the table.
Yeah.
And try to get that out of what you're doing. I have a passion for this subject because of all my experiences. I just want to know before I die as much as I possibly can about the animal. And as long as someone's doing good work, I don't care what organization they're part of.
Yeah.
So
I think the Bigfoot BFRO is, Finding Bigfoot has done more for the Bigfoot community and the Bigfoot topic than the Patty film. It's Finding Bigfoot, whether you like the show or not, has made it mainstream. It's no longer taboo,
Yeah.
And just you got to have a standing ovation for that alone, because there's been other shows that's branched off of Finding Bigfoot and whatnot that's still keeping this mainstream, and it's guys like you and us that are talking about it openly, not behind closed doors. Everybody at my work knows about my encounter. They've seen it on TV, on the Travel Channel. I talk about going out in the woods when I go out in the woods. I don't hide it anymore. Before it was, my family didn't know. My father and my brothers and other brothers and sisters and friends didn't know about my childhood encounter until I couldn't hide anymore because it was now on national television. Once it was on national television, I embraced it because I couldn't run from it, and it Finding Bigfoot has been a blessing for this topic as far as making it out, it's just coming out, with it.
Yeah. Jimmy, before we, I don't think I've sent Chris your encounter on the travel. I watched it. It was very compelling and interesting. And not throwing out names there. Chris Spencer and I are good friends with Cliff Berrickman and whatnot. We go out to the woods with him periodically. And that doesn't mean diddly squat. Point being is, you're absolutely right. Finding Bigfoot has done that show gets so much crap, and I don't know why, because Cliff Berrickman now owns probably the best museum in North America on Sasquatch, and he also is out in the woods. He's made a living out of this now. He's trying to, TV aside, that's where he spent his time. He's out there adamantly researching the subject matter, and it drives me nuts when I see the hate and disdain for TV. That's why TV sucks. It just does. I don't care.
Hollywood rarely gets it right.
They never get it right, and
Yeah.
it's got to be interesting. And so, but you know what? If you get to know the individuals, go to Cliffs Museum in Boring, Oregon. It's called Boring, Oregon, but his museum's down there, North American Bigfoot Center. It is amazing, and this is everything he's done is built to that, and it's the most amazing museum. And he's out in the woods all the time, and he's one of the most critical minds you'll ever meet. And so, TV sucks. It just does. That's why we turn it down all the time. I don't want to be the next Josh Gates. I don't want the Olympic Project to be the next
Finding Expedition Bigfoot.
Well, don't get me started. But
right. I met Cliff when he did a town hall at the museum in Cherry Log, Georgia, Expedition Bigfoot. And I've chatted with Bobo, and TV made Bobo out to be just this brain dead hippie. He's not. He's so smart. No. He's so smart. You don't understand how smart he is until you actually have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned that a lot of the antics that were done were suggested by the crew, not the guys, not Finding Bigfoot team. Not Renee and Matt and Cliff and Bobo. They were suggested, but Bobo was the one playing them out, and I just thought it didn't do him any favors the way they made him look. TV, and he's a smart dude, man. He's really smart.
It's disingenuous. TV is disingenuous. It has to be entertaining. Otherwise, like we talk about all the time, Chris and the gang of us, how boring what we do is. It would never make TV. It's so boring because most of the time nothing happens. When it does, you have 30 seconds of excitement, and then you have to build it. If you're making a TV show, you have to build around that. But it's boring. It's pouring down rain. It's nothing going on. It's just hiking through the woods. It's not TV material, I mean,
that's what it is. Yeah.
So, hey, God bless them. Like I said, Olympic Project Finding Bigfoot, they brought it mainstream. They brought it kosher again. They made Sasquatch great again, and they made it to the point where we can talk about this. And yes, there was some silliness in some of their shows, but there was a lot of good fundamental foundational stuff that made it a topic and made it mainstream. So boom.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna call this a great show, a learning show, and hopefully we can have you guys back on to talk about some other things or experiences. I'd love to even hear about you guys' experiences and what you've had. But I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. We've learned a lot, got a lot more to learn. I'm going to study your Chris. I'm probably going to bother you. You're probably going to block me. That's probably what's gonna happen.
It's all right.
That's probably what's going to happen. You're probably going to end up blocking me from all the questions that I have. But thank you guys so much for coming on. A lot of other shows will put you guys backstage. We don't want you backstage. You guys are the reason we're here. You're going to stay till the end. So you get to hear me talk about how we want to thank everybody in the chat. We want to thank everybody that showed up, everybody that's supporting our channel, and go support Chris Spencer and Shane's channel and the Olympic Project, because you're going to find out a lot more interesting stuff from the guys that are living it than the guys that are barely out there nowadays. I was just out this weekend and got my recorders and put them out and walked around a bit, but these guys are real about documenting and just putting out kind of the stuff that's going to help you grow if you're a researcher. I don't have a whole lot. I can tell you the cheap stuff to buy. These guys got the stuff that will help you get longer and better results, most likely, with the equipment that they have. That's why I'm going to be bothering Chris. So thank you everybody for showing up again. Thanks for supporting our channel, and go check out Shane Corson and Chris Spencer and the Olympic Project. Subscribe to all their stuff, and do what I do. Go focus on Chris's audio stuff and how he has it set up, because I think that's going to help me in the long run for my audio adventures as well. But again, thank you guys for coming on. Bobby, you have anything to say? Any questions? Anything last thing to say?
No, I'm good. We appreciate you guys coming on, and we would absolutely love to have you again. You've got so much more that we'd love to talk about. So,
thank you.
Absolutely.
No problem.
You've got an invitation, for real.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Chris, expect a couple of audios to come your way through email. I'm not sure because
Okay.
because I don't know if you have Dropbox or WeTransfer or whatever, because some of the audio may be too big to send through email. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got cloud memory on my Gmail, so
Okay. I may have to figure out how to send it to you because I've tried sending
if
it
you can
before.
if you can clip it, do it. But if like if you can clip it into MP3, or I don't know if you're in waveform or MP3 form, but if you
I can
can clip
convert
it
it.
in,
I can convert it from one to the other.
yeah, and MP3 is usually smaller, so.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no worries, man.
Awesome.
I look at audio all the time.
Perfect. All right, well, everybody. Hopefully, we'll see you Christmas Eve with a guest. If not, we will see you the following week because we have a guest lined up for then. Thank you guys so much, and we will see everybody else later. You guys have been great.
You
Thank you.
guys have a good evening.
You
You
too.
too. Thank you.
You too.